Hey, Annalise, can you hear us all right?
Yeah, I can, thank you.
Where's the camera? You sound very husky and.
Yeah, I know, my throat's killing me actually. Just my throat, everything else is semi-okay, but.
Have you got my my cell phone number? Let me send that to you. Let me send that to you. What was that? It's 027
yeah
337 0670.
Yeah, got it.
Okay, we'll make a start. Thank you everyone for coming. Welcome. I'll quickly start with the karakia. Whakatakataho ki te uru, whakatakataho ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā tara tara ki tai, I hei ake ana te atakura, te hio, te huka, te hohu, te hei moriora. So welcome. A couple of things before we kick off. First of all, any extraordinary business for today? The only piece we have not extraordinary is that Shane's obviously here. Thanks for coming in, Shane. Councillor Epiha. And obviously Councillor Epiha has been asked to be the additional person on this group, but hasn't gone through council yet. So I'd like to suggest that, or just propose that we give Shane has all speaking rights. That needs to be a motion. So Shane's going to have full speaking rights for the meeting, but not voting rights at this stage. If there's anything that you want to, talk about, you get every chance to do it. And if there's something you want to, you would have voted against, I'd really like to hear about, give you the reasons why. I'd like to hear so that Dave can hear. We have apologies for lateness from Mayor Sam and C. Sharon Mason. So they will be here momentarily, come bursting through the door. So that's why I'm speaking very slowly. To give them
that's my question. Do we have a quorum?
Time to arrive.
No, but you're not part of the committee.
Yeah, we do. Annalise is online, so yes.
So that is allowed?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So just a minute that I asked that question.
So yeah, we'll talk about that, Council. So hello, Annalise at home. You're sounding terrible, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay, any conflicts of interest for today? Oh, also acknowledge Julian here from the auditor's office. So thank you, Julian, for coming in today. Okay, you've got copies of the minutes of the previous meeting. Any amendments to that? Someone like to move that it's a true and accurate account? I'll move that from the chair. Can someone want to second that? Thank you. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, abstain, carried. Terms of reference. What's that? So just for our reference, obviously this is obviously will need to be changed to reflect me as the deputy as the deputy chair, and also that our council person is there. So that needs to go to council. For that, we move on to the chairman's report. Annalise.
I can try and I wasn't going to say too much here. I was going to mention that I was lucky enough to go to the conference last week just for a couple of sessions. Probably the one I found most useful was the asset management session, which was run by the head of Infrastructure New Zealand, Ross Copeland. And very thought provoking. I'm not sure if anyone else got to that particular session, but a lot of kind of korero around, which we've talked to quite often, but not just thinking about the building of the asset, but actually the maintenance and the long-term life of the asset, and making sure that also that we're actually not only keeping the appropriate budget aside to maintain our assets, but that we replace them before they're actually expired, because the long-term cost of not doing so is very detrimental. So I found that really, really interesting, obviously coming from a huge infrastructure background and with the work that we've been doing over the last 5 years. So and then I also went to the one on the second day, which I think was keeping it local, and I think it was called keeping it local. But again, it was a panel of councillors from all over New Zealand, so all with different challenges and different kind of perspectives on the way that they're dealing with things. So yeah, that was quite interesting to sort of sit back in that one and kind of just be an observer and listen to different perspectives from New Zealand. But I just wanted to say thank you for that opportunity. I found it really useful. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Annalise. Hope you are feeling better soon. I'll move that we accept her verbal report. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Nicole. All those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Abstain? Carried. Oh, sorry, Shane, you had.
Oh, can I say aye?
Yep.
Yes.
Aye.
No, you don't have any voting rights. It says, but
Yeah.
you had just.
Yes, I did. I actually had my light on at the start of the confirmation of the minute, but thank you very much. Kei te wiritanga o te kaiho o te wake, o te waka tēnā koe, Julian tēnā koe. Kora matua, tumu whakahaere, kei te upoko o te hui, Annalisa tēnā koe, kai mahi o kai kaunihira rohe, kai kaunihira ngā mihi tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora. I just had a couple of questions on the minutes, page 4. What were the amendments, and did it go to full council? Just from memory, apologies if it has. Terms of reference, review dates are set for 2022. Page 5, there's a spelling mistake. It should be the, not he. And have we had any examples of prolonged negative media content? What does that look like? I just wanted to sort of frame up what that actually looks like. I think it is page 5, A, B, and C. Was that moved by full council? Page 6 and 4. I think you've answered that already around the providers, external providers for the 30 to 40K a year for external audit, internal audit by external providers. I think we get to that later on. There's a question on page 8.
So I think you're talking that's maybe something we can bring up outside the meeting, Shane. It's we're verifying the contents of the previous meeting as opposed to rediscussing the content itself. But okay. As the reason why we want to bring the finance person in, the chair of the finance group, was
sure.
Obviously to be here for these conversations
Yes.
as we go forward. You happy that we have conversations?
Yeah, I'm very thankful and appreciative of the opportunity to bring it forward. So it's just really a way of me getting up to date. Yeah. So I do appreciate the opportunity. That it's a further point once adopted.
Right. Can I just make a comment? I mean, the meetings are recorded and available on YouTube, so they're easy to go back and have a look at. But we're happy to discuss with you if you want outside the meeting.
I think maybe Annalise, it might be a good thing to do a bit of an induction when Shane comes on. That would probably be the way to work through how.
I guess just finally, then page 8, there's no report date on the action.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Shane. All right, well, let's move on to the manager's report.
So just following on from that, so that's been noted because that was actually something I had down as well.
I'm happy to be moving second.
You can't.
Managers reports. Managers report is about to happen.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to jump in everywhere. The verbal chairs report, it has been requested of chairs of other committees to have that written, and considering the chair today, unless you've got a sore throat, actually might be best. Can I recommend that perhaps it is a written report from now on?
Yep. Thanks for that, Shane. Okay, managers report.
Morning, everyone, and welcome, Julian, along to the meeting today. Managers' report's fairly short and sharp. It's just a summary of key matters that we're going to attend to today, and a number of those are relating to the closeout of last year's financial audit or audit of annual report, and the planning for the upcoming audit, which Julian will run us through. We've got a little bit on an internal audit framework, which we discussed at the last meeting, and this is further development of that, and a short update on financial performance and treasury. I've also included within this report our work program. You'll note there, this is a live document and will be updated from time to time. So the other reports are things that will arise from actions from this meeting, where things have been struck off. They haven't been struck off, but they've been moved forward. And what we will need to discuss as a committee is timings around annual report related meetings. So we will need to discuss certain matters relating to the annual reports, like critical judgments and estimates and assumptions, valuations, and then finally adoption or acceptance of the auditor's report. So we'll just need to work through dates on that, and I propose to come back to the committee on those, given where we are in the process around annual reporting. If there's any questions, happy to take them.
Nicole. Any questions? I guess the only question, the question I have is relating to the risk management policy, which is from the previous meeting. It doesn't appear on the subcommittee, the work program.
Yeah, it sits there just under risk and assurance. So it's a general item on risk and assurance every meeting.
Is there any more questions? And just bring it up to date, Shane's Annalise.
Sorry. I don't know, like a reconciliation just between the work program and the terms of reference, and everything seems to be in there, Kelvin. The only obviously within our terms of reference, we've got legal compliance, which is actually, there's almost two things under legal, isn't there? There's the legal compliance, i.e. we are, to the best of our knowledge, we are complying with all the regulations that we need to. And then the second part is kind of any legal matters or any legal things that are currently underway. And so that's kind of caught with one bullet point in the work program once a year. So just to ask you to, now you've actually got that skill set in-house, to consider the timing of whether maybe we need to see that twice a year and the scope of what that looks like. And the second thing was, there's in the terms of reference, it talks about internal control. And again, I've seen this done in previous committees where it can just be an annual work paper that takes the key elements of internal control and gives the committee a level of confidence that you're actually adhering to those key, and it might only be half a dozen key internal controls, like delegated authorities, conflict of interest, code of conduct. And so it might be a paper that comes up once a year that says, this is what we think are the key internal controls for this organisation, and here's a level of confidence that we're actually abiding to it. The other way we can do that is obviously with our internal audit program. So just, again, consider within that internal audit annual plan, where are we going to cover internal control? Obviously, the external audit covers part of it, but what we're doing internally is that second line of defence. So that was all from me from those two things.
Thank you.
Thanks, Annalise, for that. Good points. The reason why legal matters was only in the November, because this was this year's audit plan, so it's not we've passed February, May, and August. Well, we're in August now, but the February and May we've passed. So it does become a recurring item. Legal compliance, and it's compliance with other statutory matters as well, which I think will. I've got some thoughts around that. I'll share with you around annual sign off of the financial statements, which can incorporate some of that. And yes, the point around internal controls. What I can do is break out that risk and assurance bullet, because that's where that will be covered off. So there'll be a program of work which will sit within that, but we're just developing that at this stage.
Thanks. Welcome, Sam and Sharon. Just to give you a bit of an update, Shane is here with speaking rights, not voting rights at the moment, because has to go through the terms of reference has to go through council before we can adopt to change it to have him here fully.
There's recommendations made at the last audit and risk which didn't follow through under the council meetings.
Okay, so can someone back to the manager's report? Anyone, can I have a mover for that report, please? Sam and Nicole, all those, any more comments or questions? Okay, all those for, against, abstain, carried. Thank you. The next report is back to you again, Calvin.
Thank you. So this item is around the audit report from Audit New Zealand following the audit of the June 30, 2022 financial year. This is a report which the auditors prepare annually to report back in a little bit more detail than what is in the audit letter or the audit report, which goes on the financial statements, that supports management to improve practices and deliver a better audit outcomes. So recommendations, there was 13 recommendations made. 11 of those were what was classified as necessary. So these are things which need to be remedied with some urgency, so generally within 6 months. And there was three or two. My math is wrong here. It is 3 that are beneficial, so they're sort of a longer term fix, not so urgent. There's a list, a summary of those here. Should you have any questions relating to those, fire away, and Julian is also here and be able to provide some context to those also if required, but I'll leave it to questions.
Any questions on either the report or the supplementary document? Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tēnā kōrua, kora matua, tumu whakahaere. Working remotely, page 84 of diligent, and as we look to an increase of auditor fees, the opportunity to audit remotely greatly increases the efficiency. Would you say?
Next paper.
You're in the
oh, sorry.
Yeah,
okay.
Document.
Apologies.
Okay, so can I have a mover for the last report, the Audit New Zealand audit report to council? So, thanks, Shane. Oh, sorry, Annalise. No, your sound's off.
So I'm a Teams person, not a Zoom person. I'm trying to figure out where to put the hand up.
You just keep doing that, and one of us will see you.
Okay, I'll just wave my hand. Just my only question, I guess, for both Julian and Calvin around their management report is obviously there has been a bit of a shift from the prior year to this year in the category. So I think when you're looking back at last year, although the total number of findings might have been around the same, there's a sense of urgency in the items that have been put forward by Audit New Zealand. So, you know, what is the likelihood, I guess, Calvin, of you being able to achieve and close out these within, I mean, your cover note says that you're hoping to achieve that within the year end, but there's a lot of work there. So is that kind of a realistic target, I guess, is my question.
Yeah, no, good questions. And yes, there was a flip of, it was about the opposite number last time around that were necessary to beneficial. But noting also that we received this early June, this report. So we're best endeavours to get as much as we can done within this audit period, noting that the financial year has ended. So there are certain items that just won't be closed until the next audit. But the intention is to knock over as many as we can. Julian, do you have any comments around the findings at all?
I agree, Kelvin. The recommendations that are truly critical and important are process driven. So they will take time to develop and to embed.
You just get your microphone away.
Yeah, and to embed into your normal processes. I mean, the big items there really are around judgment and estimates. The accounting standards now are such that the exercise of judgment has come to the fore because they have the huge influence on your final surplus or deficit. Other things that you might want to look at is the what I call the financial reporting supply chain. So there's a lot of inputs required from various people within council. They got to work together and talk to each other, such that at year end, when you come to do the financial statements, there's a ready means to capture the information and collate together. Likewise, for non-financial performance information, that is a traditional area where we find a lot of difficulty, not just with this council, but with also other public entities, because that's not something that normal finance functions place a lot of importance on. Increasingly, the focus is in fact on non-financial performance measures, because being a public benefit entity, your performance is judged on whether you are delivering on what you say you deliver in your long-term plan and your annual plan.
Thank you.
Ngami, Councillor Dean. Annalisa, sorry for jumping ahead. I've got some questions here. Annalisa did ask a question around in comparison to the last time. What is the measurement and what is the report telling us? There's obviously a lot of recommendations here. I would almost argue that 7 of them are in the financial. Well, they are financially related, so I do see the benefit of sitting across both of the committees. It would almost be important that perhaps the second independent is a member also of both committees, given the broad scope of both, and as we look towards a sort of the committee structures. Page 15, sensitive expenditure sign-off, the one-up system. Would it be more prudent to share that risk away from just a chair of one committee and maybe spread it over both finance performance and audit and risk?
Yeah. So the process is actually 2. So one councillor, which will be typically the deputy mayor, and Annalisa is chair of this committee, which is a appropriate place given the audit and risk. And why it's important that we have a council member there is they have the context of what's going on around the expenditure. And so we're just tidying those processes up. They're not fundamentally broken in any way. And it's really just a tidy up of how it's working. And quite often, and this one in particular was around travel related expenditure, which is quite difficult to get approvals sometimes pre the travel. So it's about the context of why we're doing it. We have the process in place to make sure that it's appropriately being booked, etc. In terms of the recommendations in here some being finance related, they are all generally around the preparation of the financial reports, and it's the technical aspects of accounting, and that's why it sits with this committee as opposed to the Finance and Performance Committee, which is more around the monitoring of the financial health of the organisation.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess it's a really good path that's been painted out for us in terms of what we need to do, and obviously it's our responsibility this group to monitor as they go through. So, is there anything else on that before we move on from it?
Just one more.
Yes, Annalise.
Sorry, there was in the audit New Zealand report, there was the classification of the 3 uncorrected misstatements. So First one being the core assets, you know, the self-made assets, which I think was consistent to prior year. The second one that was kind of sounded to me like it was just timing. But the third one, could you just talk me through that one? So I find it intelligent. It was the uncorrected misstatement. It was the third one. And I was just from the high level, I was thinking, is that related to the first one?
Just bear with me. I'm just locating it.
So I got the first two. It was just the second one. I mean, the third one I didn't get.
Kelvin, could I help?
Yeah, so I just can't find it. So it'd be perfect, Julian. Thanks.
Yeah, and it is. I think you're referring to the development contributions. Are you?
Yes. Yeah. And it is.
Yeah.
Is that the one, Annalisa, development contributions?
Yeah, apologies. I've just got in my notes, I've written the number 3, and then I've got, does that relate to number 1? But
Oh no, sorry, it's not. It doesn't. It doesn't. No.
Let me just find this now.
Sorry, I should have written down the page. Maybe I'll do a search on it.
Well, you're not talking about the investment properties being related to development contribution.
No, they're not connected.
No, I just can't find it. Sorry.
That's all right. But,
I'll as we're going through this, I'll find it and I'll come back to you.
yeah, all good.
All right. Any more questions, comments?
Just for clarity, the uncorrected misstatements are not material to the financial statements. So they're below our materiality threshold that we have informed council through the audit plan.
Okay. Thank you. I would someone to move that we receive that report and the supplementary documents. Sam. Thanks, Nicole. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. We'll move on to the next document, which is the plan. The Audit New Zealand planning report. Calvin.
Thank you. So the purpose of this report is to set the plan of the key matters which will be focused upon by the auditors. Included in that, we've got a timetable around the audit. So we've completed the interim audit. Final audit commences on the 18th of September, with best endeavours to close off on the 31st of October 2023. I won't go into the detail, but I'll invite Julian to talk to the plan.
Thank you. Kevin, your paper has summarized clearly the focus areas for us in this year's audit, principally around rates, because it's a very important, being a form of taxation, you got to get your rates resolution fully compliant with the Ratings Act. Failure to do so might expose yourself to potential liability. Property, plant, and equipment, the balances are so huge on your balance sheet that if there's any mistakes in the valuation or the impairment assessment of those numbers, could have a material impact on your entire set of accounts. So that's why we focus on it this year, as we did in the previous years. Vested assets, same thing. For council, the vested assets revenue numbers are quite large because you are an expanding council. So we focus quite a bit on vested assets in terms of recognition, revenue recognition, and timing. So that's very important. The risk of management override. This is where you have in place an internal control system, but through a dominant personality, for example, there might be instances of management override. For that reason, we check and test your journals. We also check for any other evidence relating to the application of estimates and assumptions where management override could happen. So this is a common risk required by the auditing standards in all organizations, whether it's public or private. So I think that's the main things that I want to focus on. Picking up from a finding and recommendation from last year revolves around the capitalization of fixed assets constructed by your subsidiary court. The accounting standards do not permit for on consolidation inclusion of any profit element made by court. So therefore, on consolidation, you got to eliminate the profit element sitting in capex, or capex work in progress. I think that's it, really.
Thanks, Julian. Any questions of either? No. Can someone move? Oh, yes, Annalise. Just got in the very end there.
Sorry, I will form the hand for Zoom sometime. I just had a question. I guess it's just for my understanding or our understanding around, I think the commentary somewhere in your report, Julian, that talks about the valuation of our assets. So obviously where we engage third-party valuers to perform our valuation, that's fine. Audit New Zealand obviously reperforms or reviews those valuations. But for the assets where we do not decide to do or engage external valuers and we follow our own process, I think there's guidelines or there's a methodology that you provide, but I'm just wondering, has that been a pain point in the past, and are we getting better at that so that what you require from management is kind of met, or has that actually got better, or has it got worse, or how can we make sure, if it is a pain point, that we are delivering what you need so that it doesn't chew up kind of extra time and cost?
And Alyssa, just before I answer that question, perhaps I'll go back to what you mentioned earlier about internal controls. And one of the elements of internal control is information and communication. So the finance people organize, or rather, they're the point person for the annual report. And for that reason, they need to drive the valuation process. Speaking with the asset people, there are a number of things that you need to do prior to engaging with a valuer, an external valuer, and this is to make sure that the information set that you provide or plan to provide to the valuer, the external valuer, has been completely cleansed. So in other words, it's complete as at 30th of June. There could be a number of things leading up to 30th of June that might be easily forgotten, such as disposals in the year or additions in the year. So those are what we call management-driven valuation controls, which we look at. It's also very important to talk with your external valuer on the scope of work that they're going to do. It's also very important to make sure that because you as a PBE, your assets are valued on a depreciated replacement cost basis, that the units rates used are reflective of the rate that are either current or recent contract prices. So otherwise, you have a mismatch between the evaluation numbers as at 30th of June based on current numbers and based on past numbers that may no longer be relevant. So that was the area that we had a lot of difficulty with last year, and we have been, we talked with the valuers, talked with management until we got satisfactory resolution. Does that help?
Yeah, it does, Julian. I didn't actually realise that was a pain point as well. I was actually more referring to the assets where we don't use a valuer. So obviously, because of the cyclical nature of the valuations, the years where we've just used our own process. How's that going or going? Like,
well, it is pretty uncommon now to use an internal valuer for a large valuation exercise such as the valuation for council. Pretty unusual.
Okay, all good.
Okay.
Because the reason is that the external valuers, they do valuations for others as well. They're able to compare unit rates based on locality, based on type of asset, labor rates, etc., and the results from an external valuation is a lot sharper than it is done internally, because you haven't got that information that is verifiable and supportable. That's one of the reasons.
All good.
And Lisa, one of the challenges with depreciated replacement costs valuations is the fact that we were in a period last year of very high inflation. The reality is it wasn't a genuine long-term price. Therefore, you have challenges around estimation of that price. And if you play a letter of the law on that, you wind up with large fluctuations in valuations where returning to a more sensible inflationary rate, you sometimes end up then having a valuation heading downward.
Okay, welcome payment from Audit New Zealand.
Kia ora.
Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Taking that but all that into consideration, the comment on page 67 under risk and issue, the council should agree on a significant variance threshold. Is that, do we not have that in place at the moment, or is that what needs significant review? Above, the council should agree on a significant variance threshold above which council would complete a full re-evaluation. So is your identification there, Julian?
That occurs now, Shane. So we take an assessment where we're not in a valuation year for a set of assets, and we will assess the fair value of those assets to make sure it hasn't changed materially from where we were in the prior financial year or post the depreciation rate as well. So those assessments are occurred, and we look to verify that against sample testing of assets. We will, in some cases, use the valuers to make an assessment of a subset of the assets to determine that.
Okay, any more questions or comments before we move on? Someone wants to move that we accept that report and subsequent documents. Thank you. Thank you. So it's Sam and Nicole. All those for? Yes. Against? Carried. Okay, the next thing on our agenda is the internal audit framework.
Phil, if I may, could I just mention, in addition to the 2022 management report and the audit plan for this year's audit, we have submitted to council a letter of engagement, which was signed by the mayor as the head of the governing body. Now that document sets out the respective responsibilities for preparing the accounts and our audit thereof. I think it's pretty important for elected members to know the contents of that letter. It has got a number of responsibilities, apart from preparing the accounts. There are also responsibilities for maintaining internal control systems to minimize fraud, appropriate to the size of council, and also to inform us as the representative of the Auditor General where there's a fraud. We need to know for various reasons. I mean, managing Parliament's expectations about fraud is important to us. Thank you.
Sam, anything to add to that? No. Great. Okay, we'll move on to the internal framework.
Thank you. So this really is the evolution of where we're heading with internal audit. So at the last meeting, just to recap, we discussed the establishment of a program. We went to the full council through the annual plan to seek funding to undertake at least 4 externally managed internal audits, and supplementing within that there'll be internally reviewed controls. So as Annalisa referred to earlier on in the meeting, that we undertake a lot of sort of lower level or more basic control tests. So some of those things, for instance, are sensitive expenditure, where we review transactions which have been incurred during the year against a sensitive expenditure policy and making sure they are reasonable and appropriate. And we do that internally so that we're using the external internal audit funding appropriately for those bigger ticket items which are potentially of greater importance. Key thing with internal audit is it's providing assurance for this group and for the wider council in terms of what's in terms of making sure that you're meeting your obligations around the control environment, that we're managing our risks as a council appropriately, and we've got the right processes and procedures in place. From a management point of view, it is there to support us in doing our job, and it becomes a really important and valuable tool for process improvement and just making sure that we are doing things the right and appropriate way. So the framework is going to, in this here, outlines how we'll approach the planning phases of the audit. And I'm currently working through that at the moment, and we'll be taking something to the ELT shortly around where we want to focus our attention and what are the priority items for us based on our risk profile, what we've done in the past, and really looking at the big ticket items that if they go wrong, they'll go wrong in a serious way. What I have proposed within this is that we kick this off without delay, and an area which Alison Snedden, who's come on board as head of finance, and I have been discussing areas where we see there's potential weaknesses. I don't think it's a huge risk, but potential areas of weakness around how we manage cash inflows or transaction inflows in a revenue sense into our facilities. So things that are managed outside of our core financial system. And so we propose that we will do an internal audit on those areas, which will focus on facilities and refuse which have cash rolling through them, and also other transactions, and generally managed with systems which are not our core financial system. Next steps, said we'll look to bring back the internal audit plan to this committee and endeavour to circulate before that, and we'll update you on the scoping and testing that occurs through the revenue leakage internal audit. So happy to take questions.
Nicole.
This is not a question, but it's a comment. I think starting with those facilities and stuff that you're talking about, I think it's a really good one to start with. It's not something that we even really think of, but when things add up, there'd be quite reasonable sums that would go through. So I support that.
Sam.
Yeah, I guess this is the culmination of the work that we've sort of been talking about the last few meetings. The council put through the dollars through the last annual plan, so good to see this come back, really quickly to think about where that sits. I agree with Nicole. Happy with that first piece of work, and would be interested to see what the next things as they're adopted. Wondering whether or what the ability is for Annalisa to be involved in those conversations, so that we've got some of that experience and what becomes identified as the next two areas that we'll do the internal audit on.
Yeah, most definitely. That's the plan, to make sure that Annalisa is involved, and Annalisa and I have been having discussions sort of offline from time to time around this item as it is. Yeah.
Anything, Annalisa?
I was just going to say it's a great day, isn't it? Because the sun is shining. I'm not feeling very good, but the sun is shining, and I've got my internal audit program. That's a great day. But no, well done. It's awesome that we got that over the line, and I think great approach to start with for a year. And I mean, timing will just need to work as it does. But if we can aim to have an internal audit kind of as a standard agenda item for each hui, so if you can kind of be pushing your providers or scoping and field work and timing, so that hopefully we've got a final report for each hui. I mean, sometimes it won't work out like that. Sometimes we might have two and we have none, but that's what we should aim for, is that every hui we've got an internal audit in front of us. yeah, well done. It's great.
All right. That's great. Thanks. Any other conversation questions? Someone would like to move the document and the supplementary report. Thank you, Nicole. Seconded by Annalise.
It's been like an auction.
So, all those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Right, move on now. Financial performance. Again, back to you, Kevin.
Oh, thank you. So financial reporting update now. A reminder that this also flows through the Finance and Performance Committee, and the reason we bring this here is to make sure that we're focusing on financial performance and compliance with Treasury policy to enable us to do the job of the committee for signing off financial statements, etc., or recommending the sign off financial statements. So we're referring to the period to 31 May, and we've got a net operating surplus of 29.5 million. This is favourable to budget by 3.6. And as we've discussed numerous times, key driver within that relates to growth, and growth in the terms of more ratepayers than were planned at the start of the during the annual planning process, and development contributions, which typically are running above budget. On the cost side, a few negatives flowing through here, and we've got some longer term permanent differences which we've discussed also previously, relating to roading, which was some repair work, and an overspend within the subsidised roading and sealed pavement maintenance, and we've discussed those issues in the past, which are just the state of our roads, one, and two, the cost of doing the work currently, which is very high. Consulting and professional fees, we do have a lift in that, and that has been partially offset by the additional fees that we've gathered through the consenting processes, where we outsource that and we're able to pass that cost on to the customer. And where we've had vacancies, we've filled some of those gaps with consulting staff. If we move forward to the capital expenditure on page 99, we're running, as of 31 May, 22.8, near enough, below what we'd expect to spend in our capital program. Also, we've referred to the fact that there's a large carry forward going into the next annual plan, which was adopted recently. From a Treasury monitoring point of view, we've had no breaches of our limits. We have increased our net debt by 16.5, and we borrowed some additional funds through our GFA. And going into the actual Treasury report itself, as we said, their gross borrowings are up, and our net debt is up consequently. We still have adequate headroom to our limits. Cost of debt slowly moving upward, and that's understandable as hedges are beginning to roll off and we're having to put new cover in place. But our post-hedging cost of debt is still low at 3%, compared with a pre-hedging cost of debt at 5.67. You see our debt maturity there, so we've got a good, nice spread over there, with the largest amount of debt coming due in the 4-year period. Interest rate risk management, all well within the parameters. Last quarter we had a 92.6 fixed debt, and this quarter it's dropped down to 80.9, which I'm completely comfortable with, and our average tenure of fixed debt is 3.71 years. Cash investments is really just the cash that we have on hand, which we tend to hold around that 20 to 30 million. And I'm happy to take questions.
Any questions in relation to that from a risk and point of view? Okay, thank you very much. No questions. Oh, Shane, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. Page 90. Thank you, Calvin. Page 98. There's a $3 million overspend on consultants, and you've touched on that, which is explained as being partially offset by extra fee income. If you look at the fee income, it's only 161K over budget. Significant difference, obviously, being the $3 million overspend on consultants and contractors. Be good to understand the cost recovery and whether that's been adequately pursued, and a further breakdown of that information, the overspend occurred and why. Same page 98, miscellaneous expenditure is over budget by 1.72 million. The definition of miscellaneous expenditure, small amounts, not adequately classified elsewhere. Clearly, the overspend is not minor and needs further clarification and question whether it should be accounted separately rather than miscellaneous expenditure. And Treasury 104, the 20 million, high amount to have on call. Is this required for near-term expenditure, or can it be profitably invested in term deposit?
Okay, so addressing those. So the fee income, I think you've consolidated all the fee and charges, where what I was referring to was the fee on regulatory charges, which is for consenting. So that's $500,000, and also referred to the fact that we're running under budget on staff expenditure, where we were using consultants to supplement vacancies and need for others. In terms of miscellaneous being 1.7 over, look, that's around about 1% of our total spend in terms of variance. So it's not a major overspend in that regard. You've got 106 of that point in time budget of spend. So we're over by around about 5% in total. We are sitting in a very high inflationary period, which we hadn't assumed within our budget period. If we were to deal with that and come in within budget, it would mean we would have had to have chopped services somewhere. So it's it's been signalled throughout the year that this has been occurring. So look, reasonably comfortable with where we are with those expenditure. And then the other point around cash holdings, that becomes a timing issue around when payments going out. So June period is typically a large period of funds going out, given there's a rush to finish things at the end of the financial year.
Thanks, John.
The Finance Committee will obviously get a chance to have a more of an in-depth look at the actual expenditure items in there as well. Shane. Has already gone through it. Okay. The Finance Committee had a more fuller view of that. So, yes, Annalise.
Yeah, I've seen a higher level question around the net debt position. So when looking at the Treasury report and the financial report, you can see that the net position is obviously, or net debt has increased by 16.5 mil. And the commentary box says that. You can actually see that from the columns, but what would be quite useful is the why. And so, is it just to cover working capital requirements, or is it to finish a major project, or is it, because just as a standalone statement, with interest rates going up, hopefully not for the foreseeable future, but definitely in the short term, that's the kind of first question, if I'm reading that cold, is, why are we why are we increasing our debt by so much? So maybe just a couple of lines to go, why is that, in times of huge interest rates, why is that debt position going up by so much?
Well, it's not increasing beyond where we'd planned, so it's actually lower than where we'd planned debt to move. But we have a large capital program which is funded over multiple years, so that's reason why. And net debt is well below where we'd anticipated at this time.
Yeah. So would there ever be a position? So yeah, it is obviously the completion of our major capital works program, which we have to deliver on our long-term plan, but that comes at a cost, doesn't it? Like, would we ever, and that's the kind of the councillor kind of, doing best for our communities. But has there ever been, it's probably more for long-term councillors that understand the dynamics better than me, but if the cost of debt gets too much, is there any kind of examples where you do defer kind of, not what I was saying at the beginning of the hui, where I was in that infrastructure asset management, obviously we need money to maintain our assets and replace our assets. But when it comes to new shiny assets, does the cost of debt ever get considered in even if we have committed to it? Like, what's the point where we go, actually, we need to delay this because I mean, we're lucky we've got a healthy balance sheet, I guess, haven't we? But
it's a rather low cost, the incremental going up because of the hedging policy we've got.
yeah,
And the way that we fund those assets is we will have an assumption around interest rates, which would have been assumed as being lower in this annual plan. But as we move into the next annual plan, the interest component for financing that goes up, and therefore it ultimately is passed to the ratepayer. Deferring capital does come at consequence of concertina effect later on in your plans, and you wind up with an ability to deliver, and you then have potentially gaps in what you can service and what you can deliver for the community.
Thank you.
thank you.
Any more questions or comments? All right, someone like to move that we accept that financial performance update? Sam, seconder. Nicole, all those in favour? Against? Carried. So that's 4. Okay, the next thing we got is a resolution to exclude the public. Yes, of course.
I just missed the start of the meeting, and I just wanted to know, was there a discussion around the second independent member, and just an update for the committee as to where we're at with that? And secondly, Annalisa, did you touch on the independent chair's work around the Three Waters transition? You sent a link to us, and I just wondered whether you wanted to give an update on that work that you've done for the committee's benefit. You may have included that in the report at the beginning, so I just didn't want to see that missed.
No, I didn't.
Good questions.
Yeah, good question. So, firstly, covering off the independent, the second independent for the rest of the committee. So we've met with Brannigan's to kind of, I guess, informally work through a skills matrix just to identify the kind of person that we need to best support this committee to deliver on its terms of reference. And so I think there was lots of good corridor around what we need and what we might need short term as opposed to what we need long term for, delivery of I think the activities under that reference that we need. And so where we kind of landed was, correct me if I'm wrong, Calvin, but definitely in the technology space was kind of at the top of our list. So someone with a strong kind of technology risk, almost technology from a strategic point of view as well. So that was probably top of our list. And then we also, we talked about, I think, asset management and infrastructure as a key skill set. We also talked about legal kind of skill set as well. But again, we've now got in-house capability, and it is something that you can also easily outsource the bits that you don't have that skill capability. So we kind of, I think, park that. Is that where we landed, Calvin, with those two? Was it technology and kind of infrastructure with a...
Yeah. In addition to that was a little bit around legal and long-term investment strategy and business case review and preparation skill set. So where we are in terms of advertising, there's a draft of the advertisement which is just being reviewed currently. I'm doing a first pass of that, and then we'll circulate that around the committee. And then we'll need to move forward on just some other matters around remuneration, etc.
I guess, thanks, Sam. My question around that is that have we got the cart and horse in the right order? If the council hasn't actually approved the terms of reference for the new third person and the it is there. Okay. I stand corrected. What was the second question you had?
Yeah.
Annalisa, you go.
Yeah. So I get sent invites to OAG kind of chair, audit and risk committee chair forum. And it's kind of a learning opportunity. I never unfortunately be able to attend. Sometimes I can attend in person, but I always make sure that I watch them post if I can't attend in real time. But it is just for chairs, but I think I've always kind of sent it on to deputy chair. But the last one was actually really, really interesting. So I think I sent it to Did I send it to all of you? I can't remember, but please let me know if that would be of interest, because although it says that it's a chair forum, it's actually just really good. I don't see why it is a chairs forum, because I think the learning is for all of us as governors, you know, acting under our terms of reference. So maybe going forward for all of those, I'll just, you know, I'll just send the link to all of you. And maybe, yeah, maybe the real-time version is only meant to be chairs, but or deputy chairs, but there's nothing stopping you from watching. You know, it's about an hour, kind of, you know, it's like 40 minutes of presentation and then Q&A, and some of the Q&A afterwards is really good. So the last one I watched was around affordable waters and the challenges that that may bring, and I guess just yeah, different perspectives. I know the one of the key speakers was he was the assistant Julian. Is Julian still there?
Yep.
Julian, no, the assistant, he's retired now, he just does full-time governance, but he was the Assistant Auditor General, Bruce Robinson, that's who it was. Yeah, so he had some really good views on, yeah, just on what we should be doing as a community committee, the questions that we should be asking, and the touch points that, you know, how involved we should be. So yeah, did everyone get that, or did I only send it to you, Sam? And is everyone interested? Would they like me to send? I can send that through going forward.
Yeah, I think send it around, and Lisa, you sent it to me. I don't know whether everyone else received it. I thought it was really good. And one of the key parts was around financial stewardship and being prudent with decision making. And one of the things was really early on in the video, but was saying, you know, your financial decisions are yours, and they're always yours until they're not. And some councils have got themselves into a space where the delays in the affordable water reforms has meant now that they can't actually afford the debt that they're taken on to do the work this year, because they assumed that all the debt was going to transition next year. And that's not prudent financial management. So just thinking through how, yeah, for us, what are the decisions that we're making now, and thinking about where the future might go, but actually needing to be able to afford this for our community in the interim is a big part of our decision making, and that will be applicable across different reforms and changes, particularly for water, but thinking about the RMA space as well, and what's our way of funding that transition to a regional way of working when it goes beyond just our boundaries as a district.
Right, thank you very much. Anything else before we finish this part of the meeting? Okay, is there a sorry, we moved that last one, didn't we? The financial performance, we finished that yet. Right, so the resolution to exclude the public. Thank you, Sam. Nicole, all those in favour? Against, abstain, carried. So we'll have a 2-minute